clutchless downshifting and upshifting. Now, this is a fun one that you can impress your friends and family with, your fellow riding buddies. So, if you guys don't know, the way that a motorcycle transmission and engine and gearbox, all that stuff works, is basically the clutch is a series of baskets that allows the transmission, these gears, to engage or disengage. Whoa, nice little speed bump there. To engage or disengage with the engine, right? So the clutch like expands it, it pulls it all out, and then it brings it all back in, and it all like kind of gears together, right? But there is a mechanism by which you can unload the transmission from the engine simply by letting off the throttle a little bit, allowing a temporary moment in which you can actually slip the bike up a gear or down a gear too. Clutchless downshifting is pretty cool. So let me show you how this works in practice, okay? Let's slow it down here a little bit so you guys can see. Looks like there's no one behind us. We're using our clutch just to give you guys perspective, right? So we're in first gear, okay? If I wanted to upshift normally, I would pull in the clutch, grab a gear up, and just like that, I'm into second gear. But if I want to do it clutchlessly, what you have to do is lightly let off the throttle, and there's going to be a magic moment in which you can blip the clutch or blip the transmission up a gear. And when I say blip, I literally mean like slip and kind of just like push it up. So check this out. We're in second gear. We're going to go third gear, fourth gear, sixth gear, all the way into fifth gear. And now check it out. I can do the same thing. If I add a slight blip of gas and unload the transmission from the engine, I can actually go down to gear. So I can go third gear, second gear. You can see that by gear position indicator. Then I can... And some of you beginner riders might think, what sorcery is this? How is this man doing this with the gearbox? And it's actually a lot of fun. And you'll realize that the technique you use to actually shift up and down on the gearbox, you can use without the clutch at all. And there's some benefits to that, right? For example, let's say that you were having issues with your clutch lever, right? Let's say you were out on a ride, maybe you had a bit of a tip over and your clutch lever is engaging in a weird way. Knowing how to shift without the clutch is actually going to really help you because you can get by without using the clutch lever, right? Now, obviously that's going to present a big problem if you have to slip the clutch, you're in slower speed situations, you're doing those sort of things, just like right there, right? Like I wouldn't want to lug the engine in first gear. And typically using the clutch is going to allow you to make everything a little bit smoother, right? But you can very easily go through the gearbox just like I am right now. No clutch required. And now the downshift is a funny one, right? Because if you don't time it correctly, you're basically just going to hit the throttle really quickly on your bike and, you know, it's going to get all out of sorts. Truthfully, downshifting without the clutch is just a fun party trick. I really recommend always using the clutch for the downshifts. But the upshifts can be fun because you can actually shift a little bit quicker without using the clutch. And it seems like everybody online really loves the technique. They think it's super cool and like, you know, cool race bike stuff. Now, one important thing to note is that this is a little bit different than if you were to use a quick shifter, right? A quick shifter does not roll off the throttle. It does not slip the gears between. The way that system actually works is it interrupts the ignition system of the bike to allow a quick shift up. So it literally halts timing. It stops the actual spark. And it like microscopically allows you to, I was in second gear already, shifting so much I forgot what gear I'm in. Allows you to microscopically shift up a gear using the quick shifter. So clutchlessly shifting is very different from a mechanical perspective than a quick shifter system. It's not like you're just mechanically quick shifting. And then obviously an auto blip down quick shifter, which is a very advanced system that you only see on much newer motorcycles. That actually requires the computer to anticipate what gear you're going to be going down into at what RPM and actually kind of do a computer-assisted auto blip almost, where it actually blips the throttle for you. But clutchlessly doing it is very different if you were to do that on your own. So, you see there, I had to stop to a stop sign. I still have to completely pull in the clutch, right? And you'll notice if you clutchlessly shift from first to second, it's a little herky-jerky, right? But you can get it real smooth. Like right here, I'm just... can get it real nice and smooth if you practice. But again, those downshifts, I highly recommend still using the clutch, just because it's going to be a little bit smoother, and you don't run the risk of doing one of those, like a whiskey throttle type of situation. And you want to get the timing really right. There's a trick you have to do with the shift lever where you actually kind of preload it a little bit before you engage it down into the gear, and you give it the little blip, and it happens so quickly. You guys probably noticed when I was doing those clutchless downshifts, it's happening real fast. But again, basically a little party trick. We're going to take a right here and continue discussing this just as soon as this light turns green for us. Now, granted, we are on the scrambler. We could just do a little bit of off-roading here and do some extreme BMW GS stuff over here. Look at those gnarly roots, all those rocks over there. Really killing the retention on my video. Okie dokie. Taking a right here. Now check it out. So we'll go up into third gear, no clutch. Fourth gear, no clutch, right? Fifth gear, no clutch, just to give you guys an idea. Basically, you're gonna have your foot on the lever already ready to go, and then when you roll off, grab down to the gear and roll back onto it. So just like this, we're gonna hang a right up here, and just like that, down the gears, no clutch required. Which again, it's a fun party trick, but you know, I highly recommend using the clutch. It just gives me a little bit smoother, because what the clutch allows you to do is ease onto the power a little bit better. Clutchlessly downshifting is very aggressive, you know. It kind of puts a lot of load into the bike. You know, I've gotten to the point where I can do it pretty damn smooth, but it's just going to be always smoother with the clutch. Because the clutch is modulating the power to the rear wheel, right? You don't need to do that as much once you're actually moving in that speed. You're not going to need to modulate power with the clutch when you're cornering, for example, on street. That's kind of not really required, right? But when you're coming to a complete stop like that, you're still going to have to pull in the clutch. And, you know, yes, it is a little bit quicker to upshift without the clutch. You know, that might matter to you if you're doing some club racing stuff, but truthfully, if you're club racing, you're probably going to install a quick shifter or something that's going to give you that little bit slight edge, because it actually does make quite a bit of a difference, right? Like if you're saving, you know, a couple of tenths here and there around the whole track with the quick shifter, you know, you might actually end up with a lap time that's, you know, a second faster than another one, and that can be the difference between you winning or losing a race. So yeah, quick shifter obviously came from, you know, race-derived technologies. The reason we have quick shifters, 6-axis IMUs, traction control, it all came from racing. You know, 20 years ago, bikes didn't have quick shifters. You can actually see some old-school footage of Valentino Rossi, Casey Stoner, some of the guys back in like the early 2000s. You can see them actually, when they go on the brakes like this, you can see them blipping the throttle and manipulating the clutch to get that perfect power delivery. That was something Casey Stoner was really, really good at. You can watch his footage. They used to have a camera right underneath the fork here in GP, where you could actually see what was going on with the rider's clutch inputs, which is really cool. So yeah, back in the day, you could see Casey Stoner, he'd grab the clutch in really fast, but he'd let it out ever so slightly slower than he would pull it in to modulate that power a little bit going to the rear wheel, because those, you know, those old 800 GP bikes were real nasty. So it's a fun technique to be able to clutchlessly shift, and again, it does make you look like you're a little bit more of an advanced rider, which is cool. But you're still going to have to use the clutch quite a bit. Even in, you know, a system where you have a clutch, a quick shifter up and down, you might get to a point where, you know, if you're coming to a stop, or, you know, you're coming off from first gear, you're still going to be using the clutch. It's only in systems like Honda's new e-clutch is super interesting, because it actually is like a mechanical system that's on the clutch that's thinking for you, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but you can bypass it by pulling in the clutch, which is really, really cool. I've not seen a system like that, and I think that's going to be great. Kind of reminds me of MV Agusta's SCS, the Smart Clutch system, which basically uses a street version of a recluse clutch that dirt bikes use, because there's some dirt bikes out there that some people swear by, to where you know, for riders that are kind of progressing up the skill ladder with dirt bikes, maybe they don't have the finest of clutch control just yet, they can roll really smoothly in first gear without the use of a clutch. You can just take off without the clutch, and it's just going to be nice and smooth. And, you know, sometimes it's actually a little bit easier for off-road riding, for sure. Different from a DCT system, right, where it's like a fully automatic thing, dual clutch, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, if you're out there trying to clip off some spicier shifts, highway roll racing with your buddies, that sort of thing, you know, a clutchless shift is definitely the way to go. We can show this to you guys again. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Now we'll be on the brakes too while we do it. Watch. Down into third, down into second. Yeah, you can even, like I said, as long as you flip that throttle the same way like you would while you're grabbing the clutch, it tends to work pretty okay, you know, which is really impressive for the transmission, right? And it's not going to harm your transmission because you're letting off that microscopic load on the transmission and the engine such that it allows it to slip up the gear. You can actually do the exact same thing in a manual transmission car. I've owned lots and lots of manual transmission cars, and they have the exact same thing, that a particular RPM, if you let off the gas, you can slip the H pattern box out of gear and into the next gear. Now, in a car, because the revs can drop sometimes, you can get into a situation where this guy's just gonna run the red right there. That's cool. You can get into a situation where the transmission actually grinds a little bit, right? That doesn't tend to happen so much on motorcycling because you know, the transmissions are sequential. Little wheelie for you guys. Yeah, the transmissions are sequential, so that doesn't tend to happen as much. Like, you can't really grind a motorcycle gearbox. If you're having grinding issues with your gearbox is screwed. And it's probably going to cost you a ton of money to fix it, because motorcycle transmissions are mated to the engine, right? They share the same cases usually, and to get to the gearbox you have to split the whole engine apart, and it's usually not even worth the trouble to do that. A lot of guys would literally just get an entire new transmission, or engine rather. They'll just get a whole new engine and just swap it in there if the transmission's screwed up. Boys, I hope you learned something today about clutchless shifting. It's a really fun technique. I'll demonstrate it for you guys one last time. Why not? We will be on the brakes here. We're in fifth gear. Down a gear, down a gear, down a gear, up a gear, up a gear, up a gear, down a gear. No left hand required. But yeah, it can make you look more pro. You can have a little bit of fun doing it. It's something to do if you have a motorcycle with a traditional gearbox like my Ducati Scramble Desert Sled here. Let me know in the comments if you've mastered this technique, if this is something you've been working on, if it's something that you've been enjoying doing on your motorcycle, or if you think clutchless shifting is a waste of time and you should use the motorcycle the way it was intended to be used. That's all good too. You guys just let me know down in the comments. I truly do appreciate you checking out today's quick tips on clutchless shifting and downshifting, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See you later.